Thank you. My name's Christy Corser. I'm lucky enough to be a research fellow here at the Centre of Excellence for the Digital Child. And today I have the great pleasure of chairing the Early Practitioners panel. So early practitioners are our early childhood teachers. They do amazing work with our little ones in early childhood before they reach formal schooling. They play a vital role in the development of the well-being of children. Not only are they nurturing, they're supporting, they get the little ones ready for school, they develop social and emotional development as well, and also along with educating the children in the centres, they also develop relationships and partners with the families. So they are essential to children's optimal development during their crucial early days. Their nurturing, educational and supportive role contributes to the well-rounded growth of children, preparing them for their future success in school and life. So today we'll be having three presentations. First of all, I'd like to welcome up Amanda Levito. So Dr. Amanda Levito is a research fellow here at the Australian Research Council for the Centre of Excellence for the Digital Child. And Amanda is interested in how young children develop media literacy across a range of contexts. Thanks.
Thanks, Christy. I feel like you kind of got a bit steered in a different direction, I suppose. So we will have early childhood educators speaking really soon, but I'm firstly going to talk about a research project that we've done with some young children in the media literacy space. So I might start with a story myself, actually. I was travelling in the car just earlier this week, and we listen to Spotify every morning, and my children take it in turns choosing songs. So my daughter chose a song and my son chose a song. And then we usually pause because it usually goes on to something we don't quite like to listen to. And so I pause and wait for the next selection. But this time we'd listen to a song and the song kept playing. I don't know, I was at a set of lights or something, didn't quite hit the pause button in time. The song that came on next, though, was a song by the same artist. And my son in the back goes, "Spotify read my mind." And we kind of, we talk about these things all of the time in our household. So we talk about, what technology is. Technology isn't magic. Technology, is based on what people have been trying to do. And, there's not one way of, technology doesn't read our minds. And we had to have this conversation again. And I think that we're kind of talking about, what I'm going to talk about today is kind of based in that space of thinking about algorithms and how we can talk with young children about algorithms and algorithmic literacies. And coming from a place, I guess, of their everyday experiences. So I think today we're going to, we've come to this project thinking about a couple of different things. And one of them is how can we actually have conversations and ask children to critically engage with ideas like algorithms in the early years space. And two, how can we actually do that in a way that encourages children to engage in creative production? So that's kind of the space that we're working on. And this kind of this project looks at it's a pilot space, and we completed this down in the CTC, so downstairs. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out yesterday, you can go and have a look today. And you can see here, I've just got some images here and some photos of the kinds of work that we've been doing. And so we were coming into this little pilot, and we had about 5 or 6 children come and work with us to think about how can we actually start to think about algorithms, how can we think about that with young children. So to do that, we conducted this pilot study and we invited children to come in to the space to take some photographs in the first instance. So you can see here that this is just one child's group of photographs, and we gave them some little Polaroid instant cameras to go around and take their photographs. And I'll explain why we did that in a moment. But you can see here we've asked them to take photographs about technology. So some of these photographs that you can see are definitely about technology. Some of the photographs are not really about technology so much, but we didn't really give them any direction about what we meant by technology. So this was all from their interpretation about what we meant by that word. So here are just some photographs of them going around and taking the photos. We're lucky, obviously, we were in the Children's Technology Centre. There are a range of different types of technology that were out for them already, but they also kind of roamed to the corridors and then came back to take their photos. And if you were here yesterday, you might have seen the little video where they then went and pegged up their photographs to let them dry and to think about how they might sit in relation to other children's photographs there. So some of I've got those first two photographs, for instance. One child took a photo of himself reflected back through the iPad there on the green screen. We've got, we had some photos of watches, some photos of the Bee-Bots and those sorts of things. Now, once the children had taken those series of photographs, we had that wall of photographs that you saw yesterday, and then we asked the children to think about how they might curate some of those photographs together in different sorts of ways. So we asked them to, firstly, they were able to think about how they might just grab us. They could choose any photos. They could choose photos they'd taken. They could choose some of the photos that their friends had taken. And we asked them to think about 5 or 6 photos that they might like to bring together in some way, and thinking about what they might have chosen those photos for. So some children might have chosen photos that related to things that they liked. They might have chosen things that most children actually ended up choosing photos that they'd taken, and they rearranged them in different ways to explain the relationship between the different photos. So you can see there, we've got in that middle photo, we've got children curating their galleries, is the kind of terminology that we were using there. So how can we use curation practices to think about things like algorithms there? And so the children were curating those images, popping them together in ways that they thought made sense for them. In the final section, we asked children to then curate a gallery around what they thought were photographs that best represented themselves. So children designed a poster and then laid out those kind of images around the sorts of things that they felt represented themselves there. And so you can see here are just some of the different gallery representations that we had there. So that first one, you can see there's iPads, telephones, computer monitors and those sorts of things. And when we asked that child about why those particular photos had been arranged together, they were talking about the ideas that you can use all of those technologies to connect with other people. So that was how they'd curated their particular set of images. In the middle one, we've got some photos of people using technology, so someone using an iPad. I'm not sure why the second one was particularly there, but someone standing there waiting to use the technology, and then a watch that was something that people were using, that they were using the technologies for. So we were talking around some of those ideas. Why would you group these particular sets of images together? And then the fourth one there, I put them into people and technology. So people and technology were kind of grouped together in that particular instance there. So I think, to wrap up, we're really just thinking about exploring different ways of how we can kind of tackle some of these ideas with young children through production kinds of technologies. One of the great things about using the instant cameras is that it kind of forced us to slow meaning making down in a lot of ways. So instead of taking, 20 photos, 30 photos in a 10-minute time span, the children had basically a cartridge of images that they could take, so they could only take 10 images. So they were really forced to think about, is this actually a photo that I'd like to use? Is this a photo, even though they didn't know exactly what they were going to be doing in the future, is this actually a photograph about technology? Is this something that I'll be able to work with later? So it kind of asked us to slow the meaning making down there. Did children start to think about algorithms in different ways through one 1 hour session? Some of the conversations that we had at the end led us to think that, yes, they were sort of starting on that journey, but I think one of the challenges in spaces like this, in those sorts of more informal learning settings, is that we don't have that kind of continuation of care with the children. So we don't have these children necessarily to come back to each time to continue the development of algorithmic literacies in those ways. So I think I'll finish there, Christy.
Thanks, Amanda. And now I'd like to call up Natasha and Carleen. Natasha Gregory has been an early years childhood teacher for the last 10 years. Prior to this, she worked in a special education before taking a break whilst having children. She has a Bachelor of Arts majoring in pure mathematics, applied mathematics and psychology, and a Master in Arts in Psychology and a graduate diploma in early childhood and primary teaching. She is passionate about education and interested in exploring the ways in which digital technology can be used in the classroom. And Carleen Kerr is currently in her final year of studying her Bachelor of Education and holds an advanced diploma in Children's Services. Carleen has worked in the early childhood years for 22 years, working for 11 years as a centre manager and 11 years as a kindergarten teacher. Please welcome Carleen and Natasha.
Good morning. So my name's Carleen and I'm an early childhood teacher at Cool Kids Pacific Pines. We might start off by just putting on our video. So bear with me 1 second. Sorry, if I just press play. Wait. So this is something special for you guys.
Miss Lauren, Miss Sarah, Miss Colleen, Miss Flora, Miss Enid, Miss Rachel. We are digital
From a distance, all these mountains are hard just sometimes.
We are storytellers.
What do you do with Chatterpix?
I take a picture nicely and say to somebody, can I please take a picture of you? And then I say yes. And then I take a picture of them and then I cut their mouth. And then I say the voice and then it comes out from there. Not bow head on a chinny chin chin. I am a dolphin and I swim in the deep water with my friends. My mom is on the red planet. I am a dinosaur. I'm clown. I'm a little fish. Swim. Woof, woof, woof. Crunch, 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 crunch. Mandarins are healthy. I am a bee, and I can fly, and I eat, and I make people money. I love you. I wish I could climb up the tree. Climb. Oh, hello. We are movie makers. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia. Today's weather is looking very wet and rainy. I like My name is Charlie. My favourite thing to do is Lego. And this is what I built. I'm making an aeroplane. First we fold it. It's an aeroplane.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself,
And you can see fruit up there.
what a wonderful world.
There is. What do you think might live in that tree? A monk? Oh,
I see skies.
where is that butterfly? Oh, there it is.
It's so big, like Rachel. Oh, where can I get my here? We are kindergarten. Yay! Present
Ooh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly.
Okay, sorry. That makes me so emotional every time I watch it. It's so beautiful. So thank you, Rachel, for making that for us. We appreciate it. So I'm here today to talk to you about how we implement technology within our kindergarten learning environments. Natasha and I have been fortunate to be involved with the implementation of piloting an Apple program within our services. And the video we just shared with you captures the children that we have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis. And I say pleasure because it is actually the best job. This involved enriching children's digital competencies by introducing children to a variety of apps within our curriculum. We started the journey with children by educating them on the importance of how to utilise technology as a tool to enhance their knowledge and understanding of the world around them. Within our learning environments, as educators, we're consistently utilising technology to capture children's learning and documentation. Children will approach educators on a daily basis, asking us to take a photo of the work that is important to them, their special moments. Look, Miss Carleen, look what I created. Look what I made. Can you come and take a photo? I really want to show my mum what I built. At the start of the program, we discussed with children the importance of asking one another for consent when going to take photos of their peers with their work. Anything that another child had created that was not their own work. So when using apps like Chatterpix Kids, this is particularly relevant as children were putting their voices to other things. Ideas, concepts, onto a photo to make it talk. So they would literally go around taking photos of their peers. They'd go up to them and say, "Can I take a photo of you?" And then they would draw the concept of that line across it to create a mouth, and they would put their own voice into something else. So it was really important for us to discuss with children the importance of consent, because essentially they're creating and putting their words into something else. So consent is rooted with respect for each other's human right to autonomy, and that was really important for us to discuss that with children. I myself am a very creative educator, and I'm continually encouraging children to explore various ways to express themselves creativity. Apps like Draw and Tell were an amazing app that enabled children to draw or colour, create their own stories. The children explored drawing themselves, utilising a variety of different mediums, and then going and exploring the digital technology created another layer to that aspect. So one of the projects that we did was identity within the classroom. It's one of the very important things that we start at the beginning of the year off, is that concept of who am I? What am I doing? Having that sense of ownership of who they are as individuals. So we explored drawing ourselves with mirrors. We explored drawing ourselves with what our mind told us what we look like. And then we went and took photos of the children, and they expressed it in hard form, and then they expressed it using digital technology. So it was a lot of fun. And And then at the end, you saw us utilising WWF Forest. It was an incredible app, and it was one that my children loved so much. It brought the forest into our classroom. Children would start their journey by planting a tree anywhere they felt like within the room. It might be in group time, it might be in the middle of the construction area, it might be on top of a table or under a chair, and then that would open an entire rainforest within our classroom. They would walk around looking through the app, looking through the iPads, and discovering nature hidden within our learning environment. Children discovered butterflies flying around our classrooms, sitting on the jungle floor, monkeys climbing trees and running through the forest. Children would walk around the classroom exploring and discovering the various interactive forests. The children would search for the various icons that were located within the forest to unlock facts. Yes, our children couldn't read those facts. We would help them if they asked what they meant. So a great thing that they could potentially extend on was putting as a vocal, basically, so younger children could take more out of it. But that continued to unlock different chapters and different experiences for the children as we went through. They were able to then create their own forest within the classrooms. So they would plant trees in different places. They would put butterflies in lots of various areas. And lots of the time it was the girls planting all the butterflies and the boys planting monkeys all through the classroom. And it was a great experience. Being part of the pilot program expanded our use of technologies for learning and communication, empowering children to actively engage in technology-based platforms that promote learning, in turn enhancing children's engagement in learning and learning outcomes. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Natasha, and I'm the early childhood teacher at Creative Garden Arundel, and I was part of the 2021 iPad program, and Carleen was 2022. So in my classroom, I actually have iPads and an interactive board and an Apple TV box so that we can mirror our iPads to the interactive board. And we also use the Bbots and the Cubitos and some of the Lego Duplo Coding Express as well. I thought that I'd just share with you one app that you saw out of the video, and then I thought I might talk about how we as teachers can use the iPads in the classroom. The app that I'll just mention, because Carleen did talk a little bit about it, was the Chatterpix Kids app, and this is because it was loved by the children, and also it is a really amazing app for allowing children to record and document their own learning using their own voices. And it is actually, at its basic level, a really simple app for children to learn how to use. They take a photo, they draw a line on the photo, and then they have 30 seconds to put their voice to the app. So they then can decorate it, add text, and do things like that. And initially they can start off with quite simple concepts, and then by the end you can have children who can talk for the whole 30 seconds, talking about all their ideas about a planet that they know about, or about something that they've created themselves. I know with this app that we've explored many different ways of introducing it to the classroom, and we found that really the best way to introduce an app is to talk about it as a whole class and then work one-on-one with interested children, and then allow them to explore and develop their skills. Once they develop their skills in an app, you can then start to channel it more to say something specific or some specific documentation that you would like them to learn or to get out of that experience. I know that I do have people sometimes asking me, how do you keep children from just pressing all the buttons on the iPad? Because the iPads are full of lots of different things they can select. And the way that I find that's really actually successful is that we create a page that is the children's page on the iPad. And on that page will be the apps that they are able to access that day. So it may change. It doesn't stay the same all the time. If you really would like them to engage with, say, Chatterpix, and that's the one that you want to focus on, there might be nothing else on that page except Chatterpix. Other times there might be all the apps that they've been engaging with, and they can explore however they like. And we sit down with the children and as a group, and we discuss our expectations, and we also discuss the consequences of moving off the page. And basically they get to 2 opportunities to be redirected. So if you move off the page, you get reminded that you need to go back and use the apps on that page. And then on the 3rd chance, you have to give it to another person who's waiting.
And we found that's really effective. I know that you can with iPads lock children into a specific app, but what we really want children to start doing is self-regulating their own technology use and not have it controlled by others. So even at this age, we want them to self-regulate what they are doing on the iPad. The next thing that I thought I'd talk to is just how some ways that we as teachers can use iPads in the classroom. I know that I thought I'd start with a really obvious one, which is teachers using it as a research tool. And I thought I'd just talk about a couple of examples about how you can do this. So we're out in the playground the other day and a child saw sap coming out of a tree. And she's like, "Oh, what's that, Miss Natasha?" And I'm like, "Well, that's tree sap." And another child's like, "Oh, is that the tree's blood?" You're like, "Well, what is tree sap? How can we find out about that?" And as a teacher, you ask the children, how could we find out the answer to your question? With this, our children as they are now, they invariably will bring up some form of digital technology as a way of finding an answer to a question. And then we get the iPad out and I always go work through the steps with them on what to do. So we don't just use our voice, we get them to go into the iPad, we talk about finding a search engine to use, and then we talk about how you have to think about what question that you want to ask, write the question in, and then of course you get a variety of answers. So we look and say, well, which answer do you think we should look at and read? So, and then you find the information, we learn what tree sap is. And another example is children were drawing on concrete, and I overheard their discussion with chalk. They were drawing, sorry, I went drawing on concrete with chalk, and they were talking about, do spiders have 6 legs or 8 legs? And that was the conversation. So I joined in, sat down and said, well, how can we work this out? And a child goes, oh, let's look at pictures of spiders. So we looked at pictures and we counted the legs, and they seem to always have 8, but how could we be sure? And so he said, oh, well, let's put in the question, how many legs do spiders have? We discovered they always have 8 legs. And then the conversation when the children were drawing is like, oh, how many legs are on your spiders? Oh, I need to add some more. Oh, I've got 10, I need to take some off. So it changed the conversations that were happening on the concrete as they were drawing. Another feature of the iPad that I like to use is markup, and you can find this under the edit feature in Photos. And it is really a fantastic tool for designing ideas and planning with children. And I have an example up here of how it's used. So we'd built a billy cart over quite a few months. It was a big project, and we'd ended up with a billy cart, and we'd got to the stage where we needed to paint it. And we'd already voted on colours and narrowed it down, I think, to the 3 colours. You can see they're pink, red and blue. And now we needed to decide where on the billy cart were these 3 colours going to go. So we took a photo of the billy cart and we mirror it to the interactive board so we can all sit around, and then the children come up onto the iPad and they can colour in different sections, and you can see, so they've coloured it in, and say for one section it's 13 children voted for that bit to be red and only 4 of them voted for it to be blue. So we kept that bit red. And we went through the whole billy cart using this process until you end up with a complete billy cart. And we saved that photo, they took it outside with them and they used that to paint their billy cart. And then the other way you can use markup, I just need to change my slide. Yeah, is in small groups as well. So this is a very simple thing. There were some children trying to design an instrument panel for their spaceship. And they'd covered a box with silver foil, and then they were talking about what can we do next, and they couldn't really come to a decision. So we took a photo of the foil box, and then they sit down on markup, and the children drew their design out. And then it's saved, and they took that back to the art area, and then they can work on their own design that way. So it's a really great tool for children to create and design their own ideas and then take them away and build on that. And the last app that I thought I'd mention that I use is Notes. And this is really, because in early childhood, we spend a lot of time where we have pen and paper and we write down children's ideas and what they're saying, and a lot of, because you're working collaboratively with children all the time, you're working from their ideas and documenting this with them as a process. And the great thing about Notes is you can use this instead of pen and paper with the children's planning and their decision making. And you mirror it again to the interactive board, because iPads are so small. The mirroring to the interactive board just allows everybody to be involved and engaged and to see. And when they come up and then put things on the iPad, they can see it appearing as well. So the great thing about using Notes, and I always talk through what you're doing out loud. I suppose that's just an early childhood thing. You're like, okay, let's mirror. Oh, now we'll go into Notes. Oh, we'll put you're always verbalising. And the great thing though about notes is that you can also be adding photos and adding videos, and the children can still come up and draw their ideas and add their own ideas. It's like pen and paper, just with extra benefits, you know. So the most amazing thing we actually discovered about using notes like that was near the end of the year, the children started going into the Notes app, and with no intentional teaching whatsoever, they could create their own note documents. They recognised all the symbols for text, camera, video, pen. They were able to take photos, they were able to insert video, they would take videos, they could swap to text, they could add emojis, they could draw, they could do all these features with no intentional teaching at all, and just create amazing documents, actually. So that's everything, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear firsthand what amazing work our early practitioners are doing with children in the centres. So I'd like to welcome Natasha, Carleen and Amanda up, and we've got time for some Q&A. While you're thinking about your questions, I'll begin with a question. Considering what we're hearing, we've heard over the last couple of days here, and just in general with parents' concerns about screen time and using digital technologies, parents are often wondering how much screen time should my children have, and they want to know a number, whether it's half an hour okay, is 2 hours too long? And with our early childhood centres, when you make a decision to run a pilot program such as embedding the Apple iPad into your program, was there any concerns from parents, or how did you get to convince them that the amazing work that has come out of such a program where you saw the children being creative users with the technology? They're not consumers, they're not sitting there swiping and playing games, or perhaps how they would be using it at home. So how did you, did you need to convince any parents, or what type of feedback did you have?
So I've got to admit that I never had any negative feedback from any of my parents, and sometimes I think it's the way you talk about technology. So if you're using language that isn't thinking of it as a gaming or recreational device, you're using the language to use it as a tool, and just the way you communicate with parents then is the emphasis is totally different. And I actually haven't had any parents that have had any issues with technology in the classroom at all. Have you?
Yeah. No, I just turned it
Oh, shit, no.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with Tash. It came down to educating the families. So we sat down, I went and had meetings with every single parent who came into my service to get their permission to allow their child to participate within the program. And it came down to just educating them and saying, look, there is no YouTube. YouTube will not be utilised as it is potentially utilised at home. I'm a mum, I'm guilty of it, 100% agree. But we will be utilising it as an educational purpose. So we will be sitting here and we will share the apps with our families. So once we had exposed the children to it, we shared those apps. They were free apps that our families could access at home on their own digital technologies. And quite a few of my children would go home and go, oh, Mum, can we get this? I really want to play with it and explore it at home. And it became really evident with the competency and the confidence that the children had within the classroom. So it just became that really beautiful autonomy between the learning service and home. So yes.
And I think then when they took it home, the parents could see that it wasn't just a game that they were playing. They would use it in the same way that they were using it at kindy. So they could see they were using it to create and more as a tool for them rather than some sort of game.
A babysitting app.
Thanks for that. Any other questions?
This isn't actually going to be a question, it's just feedback for these amazing ladies. So I had the absolute pleasure of working with both of these ladies on this project, and teaching is tough, teaching is really hard, and early years teaching is also really, really challenging. And it blew my mind every single time I walked into your centres, what you achieve, what you showed me, what you shared with me from someone who, feels that they're pretty good with iPads and little ones. You blew my mind. You guys are incredible. So I just want to just give you the congratulations, because you're amazing and what you've done is amazing. So
Thank you, Ray.
please.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and sort of bringing the children into the space, which was lovely. I'm curious just to hear if there was anything really unexpected or challenging in some of what we're doing with the iPad work. Did the kids take it in directions that surprised you?
I don't think I didn't find there was any. The biggest challenge is obviously we were doing them in small groups. So when Rachel would come in and support us, it was amazing because, we've got 22 children in our classroom and 4 iPads we're utilising. So at first it was a real patience game of going, but when's it my turn? Okay, so we'd show and we role modelled with the children, turn taking. It's turn taking when you play games. It's, those practices are really important life skills that we are teaching the children. And so it was a matter of going through and sharing that process with them and educating them yet again in another aspect and element. And then it was where they took it. So one of the programs you saw on the video, the children were discussing the size of a turtle. And we were discussing how we could look after it and what would we do. And that's why I was down on the ground patting it and showing size representation, because being that close and personal, they could compare the size of myself to the size of that object. And we had giraffes in our classrooms and dinosaurs and lots of different animals. So it was really good visualisation for children to see how big or little they are in size comparison to those things that became real life objects within our classroom, which was really beautiful.
I think also that I think people don't realise how extraordinarily competent that they can be on digital technology. Do you know? And I did mention some of the things was how to keep the children from because our iPads are full of, and I actually had 33 children in my class a day, so not 22. And and so I brought up some of those issues about how do you keep the kids from just pressing anything on the iPad. That was one of the things that we sort of had to problem solve and work out a way to manage that.
I think the big focus too is that in early childhood we see our children as capable and competent learners.
Yes.
And that is our focus every day. Our children bring a new layer to everything we do. We come in with the best intentions and the best outcomes and the ideas that we're going to implement, but the children take us on a new journey every single day in every element. So it's really beautiful to see.
And I think it's being flexible as well.
Yes.
So you might have an idea, and this is with everything, but with the iPads as well, and you have to be flexible and move with the children and which in the direction they're going and building on where they're taking it.
There's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I know it's a really different context, and I certainly wasn't working with 33 children with a couple of iPads. Downstairs, we were lucky enough to have iPads for the group of children who were there to have an individual one when we have them sometimes. But with the cameras we were using as well, we had the individual cameras. And I guess something that didn't surprise me, but something to reiterate, I suppose, and I think it really leans into what you're saying as well, is that children really bring their own experiences of the media and digital technologies to what they're doing. And the group of children we had a particular set of media and technology experiences. The children that you will have those particular sets as well, and they'll be different and they'll overlap in different ways, but that they're always kind of drawing on those sorts of things. So when we were looking at our photos of technologies, thinking about this is what the children thought technologies were without kind of the adults overarching into that too much. So I think just reiterating that they're already coming to us with so much knowledge and understanding in different ways and across different contexts, of course.
Oh, sorry. Can I go? Yeah. I'm just going to stand up because I can't see yours. I've got a comment and a question. And so a comment is just to the early years practitioners and just underscoring the great work that you're doing. So I've done some TikTok research where we've looked at the ways in which people participate in harmful humour and racist practices by taking the voices of marginalised groups and participating in like creating memes. And I just really want to underscore how fabulous it is to hear these conversations around consent and when you're taking someone else's work and then if you're using your voice on it. And I think that it's in these spaces, like in these early years, to kind of develop those types of critical thinking when it comes to creating memes in the future. And so that I had then, following that, a question to Amanda, what you hinted at the end of saying like the conversations with the children of how to then apply this kind of algorithmic literacies to their experiences. What do you think is the next step to say when we kind of do these activities and these learning practices? What do you think needs to be said, or what's the learning process to then apply it to their everyday experiences of Spotify or Netflix?
I think that's a really good and tricky question because I don't know that there's a definitive answer. And because children experiences, I suppose, of algorithms in their everyday lives, they come with their different experiences of what that looks like for them. Some of them, maybe they use, Alexa or Siri. Some of them, maybe it's Spotify. For some of them, maybe they don't actually engage too much with that at the moment, but potentially they will in the future. So I think linking it, those kind of really abstract ideas, and the idea of algorithms and data, and that can be really abstract for such young children, but really linking them to the explicit practices that they're engaging with at the moment. So that group that we had downstairs, we talked about things like recommendation systems and whatnot before we began, so we could kind of frame it in that space and thinking about, what kind of action that you take, or what would people need to know about you if they were kind of going to create really similar types of media curations and those sorts of things. So those really abstract ideas, doing them in production type based practices, I think kind of help to, make those abstract ideas a little bit more explicit for children.
Just another question down the front.
Yeah, thank you for all the interesting and inspiring presentations. I have just one question. Do you have any experiences working with children with developmental disabilities? Because I noticed that like parents with those children particularly have more concerns with their like language development and things like that. So I just wonder how was your experiences?
So yes, in our classes we do have children with varied needs, but because in early childhood you're focusing on each child and each of their strengths. So we didn't have, as I said, with any of the parents, I have never had any issues, and we just help those children to access the program, supporting them with their needs, and the parents have always been behind. As I say, I haven't had.
I was also going to say, so like in my classroom currently, I think I've got 5 children with additional needs on varying different spectrums. And it builds, so I had a child that was non-verbal at the beginning of the year. She does speech therapy. We have a speech therapist come into the service. They do apps when they're doing therapy. And then I suppose it gives them the confidence to be able to start doing that articulation and practicing. They're not having to engage with someone else. They're engaging with an iPad. They're talking to the iPad. They know what they're saying. They know what they're communicating. So it's giving them more confidence to be able to create and do their own manners. They're not having to compete with someone else. They're having and capturing their moments that are special to them, and they understand what they're doing. So it just captures that beautifully and enhances it.
Because even the apps that like Chatterpix record their voices, they don't have to use words either. They're listening to their own sounds and they know that they're making those sounds, so it's meaningful to them. Do you know, it doesn't have to be words that they're recording or...
They're sound effects.
Yeah,
we had
sound
dogs
effects,
barking
exactly.
and lots of different things. So it's giving them confidence
to use their voice
autonomy.
in however they would like to use it. Yeah, there's no real rules about that, how you want to interact with it and produce your own ideas, because they're there, it's their voices. Thank you all. It's just incredible work that you're all doing. I wanted to just go back to the question about consent, and I agree it's amazing that you're having those conversations and Amanda talking about algorithms. I wondered if you talk to children about what they're consenting to and how algorithms work in terms of data storage. And so, for instance, consent that your families are going to see the photos or that Spotify is going to store particular information about you to create those algorithms.
So I suppose within our services, the only people that are really utilising and seeing what we are doing is the children and their families. So when we talk to the children about consent, it was, okay, so, you know, we explained to them that this is a picture of Miss Tash. But do you know what Miss Tash wants to say? Like, you are putting, and that's how we explained it to them. You know, you are putting your voice and your words and your ideas and your concepts into something else. So it's really important that if you're wanting to use that picture of that person, that we have that conversation. Can I please take your photo? Because I'm going to be putting words and ideas and things into those things. Children are very innocent. I could honestly say there was nothing ever maliciously said by any one of them. And it was just making silly comments. Like, they would take a photo, they'd come up to me and go, Miss Carleen, can I take a photo? I'd be like, yeah, sure. I'd be like, cheese, like, how do you want me? And they'd usually take a photo of me with a big smile on my face, and they would put funny things in and be like, my name's Miss Carleen. And that was pretty much the content of it. It was them saying and identifying that they were that person, or this is that person's name. It's very innocent, which is beautiful, but at least, you know, we're starting to bring that awareness around children to it.
Because I think the idea of consent in early childhood with their photos, because parents, we use a system to communicate with parents that no one outside the service can see. Do you know what I mean? It is, and parents have signed their consent. But from a parent's, it comes up frequently, this concept of who, when you're photographing children, do you know, because parents want to see what their children are doing through the day. So it is an issue that we discuss on another level, but actually working with the children, it was more consent focused on when you're physically taking a photo or you're using someone else's work. Do you know, I don't think we got to that broader sense of where does your photo go from here. They know their photos go to their mums and dads because they come to us. These children are phenomenally photographed and videoed their whole life. It is their world. They walk up to us with their work and say, this is my work, this is my dragon, take a photo and send it to my mum or send it to my dad. That's their world. Do you know, that's how they view it. They don't yet actually understand that mum or that may then do something with that photo. Do you know, that's a really sticky issue in early childhood that I don't know. Do you know, that is discussed a lot, and you're balancing parents' desires with, as you say, then with the consent of the child. So
I'm just going to deviate a little bit from the work that I've talked about today, because we were meant to have another educator here, Lucy Murrell, and she unfortunately was unable to attend. But one of the things that she was working on in a digital project that Christy and Michael and various other people are on here today was that she's starting to explore some of those issues around what consent looks like in communication apps, and actually how far that consent goes, I suppose. So, you know, when I take a photo, or she would sort of describe it as when she would ask children if she could take a photo of them, they would say, yes, of course, you know, the educator's asking, yes, you can take a photo. But over the course of kind of this year, when she's been looking at the idea of consent, that kind of has started to change, because she's starting to explain what that consent means in child-friendly ways, but that if they've taken an image and it's going on the communication platform, what happens to it from then? So who actually has access to it from them? Is it just their parents? Is it, you know, Grandpa Dave who lives in England who potentially is also on the app as well? So, you know, kind of starting to have some conversations. And she did say that she started to notice that some children are starting to think twice about it. So some have said no, for instance, or some are kind of, you know, just having that moment of reflection around, do I want my photo to actually be stored on that particular platform? So it's a shame she wasn't here, but there is some kind of stuff happening in that space that's really interesting as well.
That's great, thank you. I think we've got time for one more question.
back there.
Hello. Well, I thank you so much for your presentation. I was really impressed and inspired by your presentation showing that how digital technology can help classroom go beyond the limit of the space. And in the same sense, I think digital technology has a lot of potential to make education to be more culturally diverse, which is very important, I think, especially in the context of Australia. So I'm just wondering if you have any experiences in relation to making education to be more culturally responsive or inclusive, or do you have any suggestions?
Thanks, Josh. I suppose in a daily basis, we are a very culturally diverse classroom. I've got children from multi-nations, and it's not something, we're continuously exposing children to diversity within the classroom in every aspect. It's not something that we particularly intentionally focus on in a way. It's just in autonomy and it's embedded within what we do on a daily basis. There were no specific applications that we utilised to enhance that specifically, but it's everywhere within our classrooms. Like, I could show you photos of my room. There's Indigenous perspectives in all elements of my classroom, with dolls to artworks that are displayed. There's lots and lots of culturally diverse things within the environment. We engage in lots of conversations and we celebrate all of our families within our service through, communication forums, all about me questionnaires that we start the beginning of the year off. And then we want to make sure that we celebrate their celebrations. Families share that with us or let us know what's happening within their families. It might be birthdays, it might be simple things like that, but then it could be cultural celebrations and we then share them with our children as well. So it's something that's just, I suppose, naturally embedded within our curriculums.
I guess I just, to touch on some of those ideas and just to think about digital technology isn't inherently going to be able to be used in diverse ways necessarily, but there are ways in which we can use some of the digital technologies that we have to kind of, I guess, open the spaces up a little bit here. So, with young children, if we're using apps that are production-based and they're able to tell their own stories in their own languages, using their own images or whatever it is that they want to bring to it, and we're kind of, I guess, thinking about how we can do that in really inclusive ways, I think that digital technology does kind of offer a space sometimes, not always, sometimes, for us to think carefully about how we can actually do that kind of work.
Sorry, just on that too, I just reflected afterwards. I do have one of my families at my service and English is their second language. So when we do have communications that we are putting out, Mum has an amazing app on her phone that literally transcribes my document that I've got and that I'm showing her from English to her natural tongue. And then she usually will write a response back into her app, and then that will translate it back to English to me to help support and bridge that gap, I suppose. So it plays lots of different forms, which is amazing.
Okay. Oh, was that anybody else have anything? Okay, we might need to wrap it up there. So can we please thank our panel this morning?